Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg, and today we're going to be looking at my top 10 games, personally, of 2019. Try to do one of these lists every year, as gaming is my primary hobby. I enjoy it, play a lot of games. Many of them I record, a few of them I do not, I play on my own. But either way, it's usually pretty easy every year for me to come up with 10 games that I particularly enjoyed. And, I don't actually play that many games that I just, really dislike. Generally, it's positive or neutral, especially Let's Plays. I very rarely Let's Play a whole game that I'm like, ugh. But, yeah, because it's just nowadays with so many reviews and, at my age, you're usually pretty well familiar with the type of games you like and so on and so forth. But regardless, pretty easy. Come up with top 10 every year. I've been really busy with exploring stuff, so there's probably not going to be a whole lot of editing in this video. Consider it a bit of a podcast, I suppose. All right. So first, honorable mentions. These are games basically that I played this year that I liked, but not quite enough to make the top 10. So no particular order. We had Untitled Goose Game. I had fun with this one. I thought it was a really unique concept, very cute, pretty entertaining, but not really enough substance to ever be anything, I guess. It's an experience. It's like a little experience. It's funny that it exists, but it's done. I mean, there's not much else to say about it after playing it once, because it's just a little experience. Telling Lies, definitely also another experience. Sort of a spiritual successor to Her Story, which I loved. Telling Lies did not quite rank as high as Her Story. As much as I like Logan Marshall Green, and he was fantastic throughout that whole thing, it was good. I'm glad I played through it, but it just did not have quite the same. It didn't grab me as well as Her Story did. I wasn't as desperate to learn how everything plays out, especially since it sort of gets spoiled. You can get spoiled like halfway through the game as to how it ends, and that sort of ruins the whole effect, I feel, of telling a story. But either way, pretty good. Can't wait to see more from that developer. Wolfenstein Youngblood. This year I played through both of the new Wolfenstein games for the first time. Cool little first-person series. I mean, none of the three new games grabbed me the same way the new Doom game grabbed me. They don't quite have that same just raw energy to them, but very solid first-person shooters, which is not a genre that I'm super into, but somewhat into. Wolfenstein Youngblood, not quite as good, especially in the story department, as the first two games, but just for gameplay entertainment, I had some good times with it. I enjoyed doing that Let's Play. I didn't have any issues with the game. The characters were obnoxious, of course. I wish they would shut up sometimes, but just for first-person shooter fun, I thought it was pretty solid. And Gibbous, a Cthulhu adventure. This was a brand new, obviously, point-and-click adventure game with very colorful, cartoonish art design, a humorous tone, and a Cthulhu mythos theme. On paper, this hit every bullet point and should have been in the top 3 for the year. It didn't quite reach that high. A lot of the game was just too easy, I felt. None of the puzzles had really any meat to them. it just is a game that sort of held your hand through most of it, and it's you might as well just watch like a let's play, or even like a no commentary walkthrough or something like that. I mean, actually playing it was not an incredibly engaging experience, I felt. And that's could be a problem with many point and click adventure games, I guess. But the really good point and click adventure games differentiate themselves by making it really engaging to play, and solving these puzzles and making the puzzles fun. But all right, those are the honorable mentions. So let's start with the actual top 10. Starting at number 10, we have Control. This is a game a lot of people are like jerking themselves over, like they're just like, oh my god, Control, best game ever. Oh my god, Control's so good. I don't know. Maybe I just had some wrong expectations, or I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. Visually, there are a lot of cool things like art design, set pieces, and color choices, and being able to fly around and hurl things just visually looked very cool. And throwing chunks of like brick and stuff at guards' face, it's very satisfying. But gameplay wise, it felt a little one note. Just throwing stuff again and again and again. It was cool for a few hours, and it's just okay, more go again and again and again. It's just it dropped off as far as excitement is concerned for me, as far gameplay. Story wise and setting, I really like the setting. I think that's pretty, sort of basically just a massive government facility. It's pretty interesting that it's constantly shifting around, and enemies, it's basically just like corrupted humans and things like that. That's all fine and dandy. The sort of SCP angle, again, I think I said this at the end of the Let's Play, that my fascination, knowledge, and just overall interest in SCP maybe detracted from my experience with Control, because I just kept comparing the two universes. And the reason I like SCP is because it delves so deep. Sometimes it delves very deep into this cosmic horror lore and things like that. And much like, making a video game out of a Lovecraft story, the aspects that I like just don't translate well to video games. I love reading and discussing about things like the Scarlet King and stuff, but how do you translate that ever to a video game? So Control is sort of just a very shallow look at this type of universe, which is perfectly fine. Obviously, a lot of people are very interested in it. It's cool. And it did make my number 10. I'm harping on it. The reason it made the list over some of those other games is because it's influenced by SCP in general, which is just cool. The government facility setting and all that, pretty cool. And like, the actual gameplay of chucking rocks is pretty exciting for a while. That the reason it's not higher is because of the reasons I listed. That it just sort of, it wore off for me fairly quickly. Number 9 is A Plague Tale: Innocence. So this is my most recent Let's Play that I finished. Snuck in there. I mean, technically, I guess I sort of played it in 2020, but yeah, it's a 2019 game. I think I started in 2019. I did. Plague Tale: Innocence. I mean, if you watch the Let's Play, obviously you're pretty familiar with my thoughts. But the story, really well done. Characters were good. The setting, I'm a sucker for anything French, really. The puzzle design in both actual puzzles and combat. I mean, puzzly combat is always an interesting thing. Sometimes it's really obnoxious. Sometimes it can be very well done. And I did not ever feel it was obnoxious in A Plague Tale. So having the interactions between the rats and the guards and light and dark and all that, very interesting stuff. And just a really well-made game, well put together. I don't have any specific complaints about it. But at the same time, it doesn't blow me away or anything like that. I don't know how much I'd really ever want to replay it. So for that, it only comes in at number 9. Number 8. WoW Classic. It's a little cheating, I guess, to put it on a 2019 list, as it's basically a re-release of a game from 2004. But it took up a decent chunk of the back half of the year. And it was technically released in 2019. So I'm allowed to put it. I'm pretty much fallen off of it now. It's very likely at some point in the future I'll jump back in. But I put in enough time in it to get a character to 60, get a bunch of other characters. You know, I played WoW Classic more than some of the other games on this list. Part of the reason it makes it up on the list is because it's a game that I actually played with friends and chatted with them while playing. I mean, that's such a rare freaking occurrence. Like, that alone can propel it. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of a conflicting thing. It's obviously a game in general that's near and dear to my heart and has taken up chunks of my life, like many people. To say it's actually like a incredible game, that's a whole other discussion, really. This is just a personal opinion of where it ranks as far as the games that I've played in 2019. And so, personally, just all of my opinions and thoughts about the game and WoW Classic specifically puts it at number 8. I mean, the fact that I'm not playing it right now, and it perhaps ran its course, that's not really a detraction. Like I said, with A Plague Tale, I don't know if I'd replay that. So just looking at the time that I spent on it, it was time pretty well spent. You know, I had fun. You know, they said, one of the guys, the developers said before it was even announced that when talking about the concept of a WoW Classic, he said, you think you want it, but you don't. I think it's pretty well proven now that that was a false statement. A lot of people flocked back for WoW Classic. And yeah, I'm sure they're going to have huge drop-off numbers. It's hard to say how long WoW Classic will actually exist. You know, once they release all the old content, if that's pretty much just going to be it, because they're not going to have any player numbers. But being able to just go back and just relive some old memories and old moments and things like that, and hang out with friends that you haven't played a game with in years, you know, stuff like that, it's pretty cool. It's just a pretty cool thing. So, number 8 for being pretty cool. Number 7. Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. I actually don't know if this game even came out in this year, but I know I played it this year, so we're counting it. But okay, it came out this year. We're okay. I would have counted it either way, but it came out in June. Yeah, so Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is a somewhat shameless ripoff, I suppose, of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And we're getting a lot of these types of games nowadays. You know, indie developers, small developer and companies taking a formula that we all know works There's some very classic games in different genres, and these modern developers are taking those and iterating on them and putting it out as its own thing. And it's like, we all know what this is copying, what this is based on, but this is our take on it. It's the same type of experience that you know and love, but we're going to do some new things with it. And I, for one, really like it. This is not the only game on this list that falls in that category. So, and I only recently discovered Symphony of the Night, so this is all sort of, it's not even like banking on nostalgia or anything like that. This is just good gameplay concepts being put to work. I don't think Bloodstained is as good as Symphony of the Night, but it does a lot of things right. There's a lot of gameplay there. It's all pretty well done. It has good, a lot of good variety. It has good enemy design, some fun bosses, some fun levels. It's just got a lot of good stuff in it, and I probably will end up replaying it at some point, which is a pretty high mark as far as video. There's a lot of video games out there. I don't replay that many, so it's a pretty good thing. It's not perfect. There's definitely some frustrations involved. I still don't really care for the graphic style almost at all, of the characters at least. Don't even. I know I had some more specific complaints back when I Let's Played it, but it's sort of slipping my mind. But I know it was good enough to make number 7 on this list. Number 6, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That's right, Call of Duty game making a top 10. I would not have guessed that would have happened this year. I thought I was pretty much done with Call of Duty unless they remaster or remake Modern Warfare 2. I had bought Black Ops 3, I bought Black Ops 4, I bought like Advanced Warfare. I've dabbled in recent Call of Duties over the last few years, but none of them I played for more than like a few days. I don't know, it just doesn't click. Nothing really worked for me. I thought I was done. And then they released Modern Warfare, and everyone started raving about the single player, and I was like, all right, I'll check out the single player. And yeah, I really enjoyed the single player. If it was just the single player, this game probably would have also made this list. I really enjoyed it. Good story, good characters, just fun set pieces, not really obnoxious like infinite enemy bullshit. It was just solid. But the multiplayer was also a big step up from recent years. It had a lot of faults. It still has a lot of faults with map design and just some inane decisions by Infinity Ward. But I just kept playing it. I played a lot of it, and it was just like, it was addicting. And I haven't been like addicted to a Call of Duty game in like 10 years, 9 years, or something like that. It's been a long time. So it was just really nice to get back into like a Call of Duty multiplayer game again. And to actually be invested in learning all the maps and learning the different guns and just enjoying myself. It has problems, but I actually bought the game for Ziggy, and he and I started playing together, and they have a mode in Modern Warfare called Gunfight, which is basically 2v2 on very small maps, and we played a bunch of that as well. So I got even more mileage out of this game through that really cool mode. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that I put a Call of Duty game on at number 6. Not even like an honorable mention. It was at number 6. But yeah, it was a really good release this year. I still want remastered Modern Warfare 2 though. Number 5. The Outer Worlds. So, this is a game, I remember when it was announced, they said Obsidian putting out a new sort of Fallout New Vegas-esque game, but in space. And I was like, Fallout New Vegas, unlike many people, I'm not that huge of a fan of. I can't bring myself to replay it. It's so ugly, and I don't know, it just doesn't click with me, especially actually getting to New Vegas. It just seems so empty and lifeless. If they ever remake that game, it could be amazing, but I just don't have the same love for it. I played it when it came out. I just bleh. So I was not like overly enthused about the Outer Worlds, but I was like, it could be good, I suppose, if they have their own reign on a Fallout type game. And it turned out to be pretty damn good. Not perfect, but pretty damn good. The shooting felt really good. Character customization, dialogue, characters, story, the different settings, it all felt pretty good. But perhaps a tad too easy. If you watch my Let's Play, I tended to just cream everything after the first few episodes. So that was a little unfortunate. And in the end, it didn't feel as large of a game as I would like it to feel. I mean, I know there are limitations. It's not really a good nitpick. But it felt more limited in scope than I really want it to be. But overall, I would say I enjoyed it more than, say, Fallout 4. It was just very nice to be playing this type of game on a fresh new engine, or a different engine at least, without Bethesda's usual bullshit nowadays. It's just a fresh sort of game in a genre that I enjoy. So props, and I hope to see an Outer Worlds 2 that's even bigger. We're shooting through this list pretty quickly. Normally these are like hour-long videos, but yeah. Number 4. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So when this game was announced, I think I don't really remember what I thought about it. I think I kind of had wanted them to just do Titanfall 3, but I like Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan. You get to play a Jedi, modern Star Wars game with sort of Dark Souls-esque combat. I think I was cautiously optimistic about the overall concept, because we've had some Dark Souls clones recently, in recent years, that have not really been incredible, such as Lords of the Fallen and the Surge. But they're a good company, and I knew I was going to end up playing it. And it ended up being one of the best Star Wars games made in the last couple decades. Or at least the last decade. Pretty damn entertaining. Lightsaber combat felt pretty satisfying. Force powers especially felt really satisfying. The story itself, I mean, it's Star Wars. It's not really... It's pretty tricky for a Star Wars story to be awesome outside of, like, a book. So I'm not going to really praise the story and the characters, although the Night Sister... I digress. But gameplay-wise, yeah, I mean, nothing really terrible to talk about. I wish that the double-bladed lightsaber was more balanced. there's really almost absolutely no reason to ever use it outside of a few very specific situations, which bothered me. But just a well-made Star Wars game where you get to play as a Jedi. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we got. I hope to see a lot more Star Wars games in the future of this caliber, which I think is pretty high praise. So, and we'll probably see a Fallen Order 2 at some point, which I think is pretty cool. But hopefully, double-bladed lightsaber is made viable. I mean, it was viable. I mean, I guess, but come on, it should just be better. Yeah. Number 3. I said earlier about Bloodstained, this modern type of game that looks back at an older game and just tries to redo it and iterate and make it better. And that's our number 3 with Fell Seal. So the game that this is copying is, of course, Final Fantasy Tactics. And there's not a shortage of these tactical RPGs in our modern day. There's plenty of choices out there. Some, of course, are much better than others. Nothing really ever compares to Final Fantasy Tactics as far as I'm concerned. But I think Fell Seal did a very, very good job of not just copying what Final Fantasy Tactics did and just releasing it in the modern world with different names for things, but iterating on it and giving more options to your tactical game. The art style is divisive. I didn't like it at first. I still wouldn't say I love it, but it works. The story, I couldn't even tell you. I could not. God, if I try and think about the story, there was like a council, and then there was a bad guy on the council, and they wanted to summon some ancient evil or something. I mean, that's any RPG. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, one of the big reasons I love Final Fantasy Tactics, War of the Lions, is just the incredible dialogue and the story of it. But that's a really rare thing in video games nowadays. So I can't knock Fell Seal too much. Why I like Fell Seal so much, why it's at number 3, is just because of the gameplay. I'm a big fan of this style of RPG. And for me, the reason that these games sink or swim is based around the level of customization. And it's not just like the number of options available to your party of characters. It's not just about that, because it's also about having a high percentage of those options be viable. Like, you can make all these different combinations work. And not just in like some rare specific situations, or, you know, these super like mathematical, you know, like an average player playing through the game can try out all different sorts of things and they can make it work. That's where it's really cool. Also, one of my sort of problems with Final Fantasy Tactics is the way that JP works, and the way that you sort of level up classes and jobs and abilities and stuff like that. It's fairly grindy, and like you're gonna be in one battle for like an hour, just reusing abilities on yourself just to get JP and blah blah blah. So Fell Seal sort of fixes that problem. It introduces its own problems by switching things up, but overall I think it's an improvement. So yeah, overall I just really enjoyed my playthrough. Just going through and trying out different builds and seeing what's overpowered and seeing what's not, and I just like that shit. Definitely a game that I'm going to replay at some point and probably have a completely different experience with a party. So, pretty sweet. I know they're working on like more content and like different things. I haven't really been following the development of it after the release, but I know that they're working on more stuff. So that's awesome. Number 2 is Disco Elysium. Yeah, I would say if I was looking at the most unique game of 2019, it would probably be this. I mean, maybe Untitled Goose Game, but Disco Elysium, there's really not much like it. A CRPG with no combat. I mean, that alone is pretty weird, having no combat and everything is just dialogue. That would be unique enough, but the setting and the story and just the internal dialogue and the external dialogue options that they have, you know, the political opinions that they've spouted throughout this game, you know, just so the writing. I mean, the writing is so unique in the video game realm. It's really incredible. I don't think I would say it's my favorite CRPG of all time. Probably because, you know, I'm sort of a traditional gamer in a lot of ways. I like leveling up. I like growing more powerful and you know, seeing my characters grow more powerful in different ways and become, you know, these powerful entities that can crush anything before them and have this victory over their foes. I like all that. And so a game like Baldur's Gate 2 just appeals to me more in a general sense. But I would put Disco Elysium in my top 3, and that's saying quite a bit for a game with no combat and just such a weird setting and no real leveling up. I mean, there's a degree of leveling, I suppose, but not in the traditional sense of what we associate with video games. Your character isn't really growing more powerful. They're growing more capable or more varied. But yeah, I mean, the reason that this game succeeds rather than fails is entirely because of the writing. If this game had if this game had typical video game writing, like of a Resident Evil game or something, it would be lost to the winds. Like, no one would ever discuss Disco Elysium. Because, like, what would be interesting about that game? Practically nothing. But since the writing is so fucking good, as far as I'm concerned, the best writing in video game history, it makes it stand apart. In some ways, you could just read a book rather than playing the game. And so, in the other sense, if it was just too writing heavy and they didn't develop the video game concept enough, it would also just be like a visual novel. So it's a careful balance. It's a careful balance between just a shitty CRPG and a visual novel. But Disco Elysium strikes the fuck out of it. And it's really just an incredible experience. I would definitely replay it. Probably not anytime soon. Like maybe in a few years. But it's such a unique world. The way that they set up, you know, your amnesiac character to learn everything about the world along with you. And the way your choices branch out based on like internal monologues and your political leaning. Like it's super, super interesting and super well made. I wish that company the best of success, because I just want to see a lot more stuff like that. But it wasn't quite good enough to make the #1 slots, and I'm sure if you've watched this channel at all, you can guess what the #1 for 2019 was. But the answer, of course, is Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice. I mean, it's not a big secret that I am a pretty tremendous fan of the Soulsborne franchise, the Soulsborne series, whatever you want to call it. So obviously, any game in that series is likely to rank pretty high. But it's not guaranteed that every time they release a game, it's going to be my #1 for the year. I don't remember if I did a list for the year Dark Souls 2 came out. I don't know what else came out that year, but I kind of doubt it made it to #1. When Demon Souls came out, I don't know if I would put that game at my #1. When was that? 2009? 2008? Yeah, Demon Souls was 2009. Oh, Modern Warfare 2 came out that year. Uncharted 2 came out that... Oh, God. Yeah, I think I'd put Uncharted 2 over Demon Souls. So it's what I'm saying is it's not a guarantee that it's #1. They do have to keep delivering. They have to keep innovating and knocking things out of the park. They can't get lazy. This is not like Madden or something. They have to keep working on it. Because they could, we've seen what happens when they sort of slap something out. Especially without their main man. Miyazaki. With Dark Souls 2. I mean, it is possible for them to sort of drop the ball. But they did not drop the ball with Sekiro, which, I mean, if you compare Sekiro to like Demon Souls, it's almost hard to even see the same like framework, really. In hindsight, of course, we can see how we got from Demon Souls to Sekiro. We can see the progression. But just looking and comparing Demon Souls to Sekiro, they're massively different games. Like, super different. I mean, their similarity, of course, is that they're both difficult. But yeah, there's a lot different. And so it's really its own thing in the franchise, which is a risk that they took. It's a risk that they took to have this, to add in like a grappling hook and to add in, to base their combat around deflecting attacks rather than blocking or dodging, or you're meant to often specifically deflect attacks, and they're basing a game around this mechanic. And not necessarily, but for a lot of players, you're going to be deflecting a lot of attacks. It's a core part of the gameplay. And so it's just at this point that they've really proven that they know how to make fun gameplay. I mean, they just do. It's difficult. Yes, Sekiro is different. It's difficult in different ways than, say, Dark Souls is different. They're very different games. It's a different type of difficulty. But For whatever reason, they're just the masters of making fun difficulty. But that's not. I mean, Sekiro gameplay, it's good. I mean, it's not a big secret. I don't need to really tell you why. But it's not just number one because it has fun gameplay. The setting is actually a huge part of why Sekiro is so damn good, and it's also why Bloodborne is so damn good as well. I'm not huge into Japanese mythology or even Japanese history or anything like that, but they really made this world just come to life and really super cool, with just these gorgeous different settings. You get to fight like this fucking dragon, and you like the I don't remember the names of areas. I'm getting old, but like the valley with all the monkeys and stuff, it's just so beautiful. And yeah, it's really, they put together some impressive locations. Yeah, I don't know if I really need to say much more about Sekiro. I mean, at this point, you're either on board with anything FromSoft does, or you're not. For me, at this point, I mean, it's hard for them to do wrong. It's hard for them to do wrong in my eyes. I know they're capable of doing wrong and putting out something bad. I know they're capable of it. But everything they're putting out, it's just been so damn good. So yeah, I guess I don't have much else to say. I don't know if this has been the most interesting list. Because I don't play that many different games. There's plenty of games I did not play this year that probably could have potentially made this list. Let's see, what didn't make this list? Resident Evil 2 didn't make the list, and I did play it, but horror games, for a horror game to make a top 10 is yeah, like Blair Witch didn't make the list either. I didn't play Fire Emblem's Three Houses because it just seemed too anime. Pokemon Sword and Shield I did play but did not make the list because I thought it just, that's not a series that has really iterated much. Devil May Cry 5 I did play but I didn't put on the list because it's just not my style of gameplay. Luigi's Mansion 3 I didn't play. It doesn't really seem like my thing. Metro Exodus I didn't play, even though I've played the first two games. Borderlands 3 I didn't play. Gears 5 I didn't play. Oh, The Division 2 I played, but I didn't put on the list because I only played it for like 3 hours. Days Gone I played, but I didn't put on the list because I wasn't super interested in it. Link's Awakening I didn't play. The new Shovel Knight thing I didn't play. Far Cry New Dawn I played, but I didn't put on the list because it's so forgettable. I guess, yeah, there's a good number of games that I have played this year that did not make the list, and did not even make an honorable mention. Because I was just so neutral about them. Either they just really did not appeal, like genre did not really appeal to me, like Resident Evil 2, or they just didn't offer anything to the table that's worth talking about. But I guess that's it for 2019. Next, I'll be doing putting together a list of my top 10 games of the 2010s, the last decade of video gaming, which has been a wild ride. That's a much harder list to put together, but probably more interesting. Either way, my name is Mangg. This has been my top 10 games of 2019. I'll see you fine folks around.